A young man burst through the doors of Varna Airport in Bulgaria. He's not walking, he's not jogging, he's sprinting like his life depends on it. Within seconds, he vaults over a fence, disappears into a meadow, and vanishes into the forest beyond. That man is 28-year-old Lars Mittank from Germany, and here's what makes this absolutely chilling. He left behind everything. His wallet, his passport, his phone, his luggage. Everything that would allow him to return home to his mother, who was waiting for his call. 10 years later, despite extensive searches, international media coverage, and countless theories, Lars Mittank remains one of the most haunting disappearances in modern history. What you're about to hear isn't just another missing person case. This is a story that challenges everything we think we know about rational behavior, about the thin line between paranoia and reality, and about how quickly a dream vacation can transform into a living nightmare. Because the truth is, what happened to Lars in those final days in Bulgaria defies logical explanation. Let me take you back to where it all began. June 30th, 2014. Lars Mittank, a 28-year-old German man, was living what most people would consider an ordinary life. He worked in construction, lived with his mother in Berlin, and was known by friends and family as a reliable, level-headed guy. Nothing about Lars suggested he was the type of person who would simply vanish into thin air. But that summer, he decided to join 5 of his friends for what should have been a straightforward vacation to Bulgaria's Golden Sands resort. Golden Sands is exactly what it sounds like, a popular seaside destination just outside Varna, known for its beautiful beaches, vibrant nightlife, and affordable prices that attract thousands of young Europeans every summer. For the first 6 days of their trip, everything went exactly as planned. Lars and his friends spent their time doing typical vacation activities. They relaxed on the beach, played football, went clubbing, and enjoyed the carefree atmosphere that comes with being young and on holiday in a foreign country. According to his friends, Lars was in excellent spirits throughout the trip. He was relaxed, happy, and showed absolutely no signs of unusual behavior. There were no arguments within the group, no financial stress, no relationship problems, nothing that would suggest what was about to unfold. But on July 6, 2014, everything changed. It was their last night before the scheduled return to Germany. The group had gone out to a local bar, as they had done several times during their stay, but this time something went wrong. Lars, who was a passionate supporter of the German football club SV Werder Bremen, got into a heated argument with some other German tourists who supported FC Bayern Munich. Now, football rivalries in Germany can be intense, but what happened next was completely unexpected. The argument escalated beyond typical sports banter. According to witnesses, the disagreement became increasingly aggressive. After the confrontation at the bar, Lars and his friends left and went to a nearby restaurant. But here's where the story takes its first strange turn. Outside the restaurant, Lars suddenly separated from his group. He told his friends he was going somewhere else and just walked away. This wasn't like Lars at all. Throughout the entire trip, the group had stuck together. There was no reason for him to suddenly go off on his own, especially on their last night. His friends waited for him to return, but as the hours passed, they became increasingly worried. They searched the area, checked the usual spots they had visited during their stay, but Lars was nowhere to be found. He had simply vanished into the night, without explanation. His friends eventually returned to their hotel, hoping he would show up in the morning with some reasonable explanation for his disappearance. When morning came, Lars did indeed return to the resort. But the man who came back was not the same person who had left the night before. He was disheveled, clearly shaken, and claimed that something terrible had happened to him. According to Lars, the German football fans from the bar had hired 4 local men to follow him and beat him up. He told his friends that these 4 men had attacked him, resulting in a ruptured eardrum and an injured jaw. Now, here's where we need to pause and consider what we know versus what we don't know. Lars's friends saw him return with visible signs of injury. There was evidence of trauma to his ear and jaw, but there were no witnesses to this alleged attack. No one saw four men following Lars. No one reported seeing a fight. The only account of what happened during those missing hours came from Lars himself. His friends were concerned enough about his injuries to insist that he see a doctor. The medical professional who examined Lars confirmed that he had indeed suffered a ruptured eardrum and jaw injury. More importantly, the doctor advised Lars not to fly. With a ruptured eardrum, the pressure changes during flight could cause severe pain and potentially worsen the injury. The doctor prescribed cefprozil, an antibiotic commonly used to treat ear infections and prevent complications. This medical advice created a problem. The group was scheduled to fly back to Germany on July 7th. Lars's friends offered to stay with him to extend their trip until he was cleared to fly. But Lars insisted he would be fine on his own. He told them to stick to their original travel plans and return home as scheduled. Looking back, this decision haunts everyone who knew Lars. Why would someone who claimed to have been attacked by hired thugs want to stay alone in a foreign country? On July 7th, Lars's friends departed Bulgaria as planned. Lars checked out of the Golden Sands Resort at the same time and moved to the Hotel Varna, a budget accommodation close to the airport. The logic seemed sound. He would stay one night at the cheaper hotel, see the airport doctor the next day to get clearance to fly, and then return home to Germany. It should have been simple, but something was terribly wrong with Lars. Within hours of his friend's departure, his behavior became increasingly erratic and paranoid. The hotel's security cameras captured footage that is genuinely disturbing to watch. Lars can be seen pacing the corridors for hours, repeatedly looking out windows as if watching for someone, and at one point hiding in the elevator for an extended period. At around 1 a.m. on July 8th, the cameras show Lars leaving the hotel. He was gone for approximately 1 hour before returning. To this day, no one knows where he went or what he did during that hour. There are no witnesses, no security footage from the surrounding area, no evidence of where he might have gone. It's a complete blank in the timeline. The next morning brought more alarming behavior. Lars called his mother in Germany, and what he told her changed everything. He claimed that people were trying to kill him or rob him. He was so convinced of this threat that he asked his mother to cancel his credit cards immediately. His mother, hearing the fear and panic in her son's voice, complied with his request. But she was also deeply concerned. This wasn't the Lars she knew. Her son was rational, practical, not prone to paranoia or dramatic statements. If you're finding this story as captivating and mysterious as thousands of others have, make sure you're subscribed to never miss cases like this one. Hit that notification bell because we dive deep into mysteries that mainstream media often overlooks. And trust me, Lars's story gets even more inexplicable from here. By the morning of July 8th, Lars was scheduled to visit the airport doctor to get medical clearance for his flight home. He had rebooked his ticket and was supposed to finally leave Bulgaria, but his paranoia had intensified overnight. During his second phone call to his mother that morning, he told her that the people who were after him were getting closer. The fear in his voice was unmistakable. Lars arrived at Varna Airport and sent his mother a text message confirming he had made it there safely. This would be the last direct communication anyone would ever receive from him. He went to see the airport doctor, Dr. Kostov, for his medical examination. What happened in that office has been reconstructed from Dr. Kostov's detailed account, and it paints a picture of a young man in the grip of severe psychological distress. Dr. Kostov later described Lars's behavior as extremely nervous and erratic. Lars was trembling, constantly looking around, and seemed to be in a state of high anxiety. The doctor examined him and determined that his eardrum had healed sufficiently for him to fly safely. He gave Lars medical clearance to board his flight home. But Lars didn't seem relieved by this news. Instead, he remained in the doctor's office, expressing doubts and concerns about the medication he had been prescribed. Then something happened that would trigger Lars's final desperate act. A construction worker entered the doctor's office. This wasn't unusual. Varna Airport was undergoing renovation work at the time, and construction workers regularly moved through different areas of the building. But Lars's reaction was immediate and extreme. The moment the construction worker appeared, Lars began trembling violently. His paranoia reached a breaking point. According to Dr. Kostov, Lars suddenly stood up and shouted, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." Before anyone could react, he bolted from the office. He left everything behind. His luggage, containing all his belongings, his wallet with his identification and money, his mobile phone, his only means of communication with his family, his passport, the document he needed to return home. Everything that connected him to his life in Germany remained in that airport office. What happened next was captured by airport security cameras, and the footage has been viewed millions of times online. Lars can be seen running through the terminal, moving with purpose and desperation. He exits the building and continues running across the airport grounds. Then, in broad daylight with multiple witnesses around, he approaches a fence surrounding the airport perimeter. Without hesitation, he climbs over it. On the other side of the fence was an open meadow. The security cameras show Lars jogging across this open space, not looking back, not slowing down. He reaches the edge of a forest and disappears into the trees. That was at approximately 2 p.m. on July 8, 2014. It was the last confirmed sighting of Lars Mittank. The immediate response was swift. Airport security was alerted within minutes. Local police were called, search teams were organized. The forest where Lars had disappeared was not particularly large or dense. It was located near populated areas, with roads and residential developments nearby. This wasn't a vast wilderness where someone could easily become lost and never be found. Initial search efforts focused on the area immediately around the airport. Search and rescue teams, including trained dogs, combed through the forest and surrounding countryside. They found no trace of Lars, no footprints, no clothing, no evidence that he had passed through the area at all. It was as if he had simply vanished the moment he entered those trees. As news of Lars's disappearance spread, the search expanded. Volunteers joined professional search teams. The Bulgarian authorities coordinated with German officials. Missing person alerts were broadcast across multiple countries. The security camera footage was released to the media, generating international attention. But despite all these efforts, no new leads emerged. The investigation revealed several crucial details about Lars's final days. The Hotel Color Varna provided additional security footage showing the extent of his paranoid behavior. The pacing, the hiding, the constant vigilance all suggested someone who genuinely believed he was in danger. But there was no evidence to support his fears. Hotel staff reported no suspicious individuals asking about Lars. There were no signs that anyone was actually following or threatening him. Dr. Kostov's account of their meeting became a key piece of the puzzle. He was adamant that Lars's behavior was not normal. The extreme reaction to the construction worker, the trembling, the desperate escape, all indicated severe psychological distress. But what had caused this condition? Was it related to his head injury? Was it a reaction to the antibiotic he was taking? Or was something else entirely responsible for his mental state? Here's where the case becomes even more complex. Medical experts who reviewed the available information noted that cefprozil, the antibiotic Lars was prescribed, can cause side effects including anxiety, confusion, and in rare cases, hallucinations. However, such severe reactions are extremely uncommon, and there was no way to determine if Lars had experienced an adverse drug reaction without examining him directly. The head injury Lars claimed to have sustained also became a focal point of investigation. Traumatic brain injuries can indeed cause personality changes, paranoia, and irrational behavior. But the medical examination at the airport suggested his injuries were relatively minor. Could such injuries really account for the dramatic change in his behavior? The medical community remains divided on this question. As months passed without any trace of Lars, theories about his disappearance began to multiply. Some believed he had suffered a psychological breakdown and was hiding somewhere, afraid to return home. Others suggested he might have taken his own life in a state of severe mental distress. More dramatic theories proposed that his paranoia was justified, that he really was being pursued by dangerous individuals, and that something terrible had happened to him. The search for Lars continued for months, then years. Advanced techniques were employed, including ground-penetrating radar and aerial surveys. Psychics offered their services. Amateur investigators analyzed every frame of the security footage, but nothing produced concrete results. Lars Mittank had effectively disappeared from the face of the earth. But what really happened during those crucial days? Let's examine the most compelling theories that have emerged over the past decade, because the truth might be more complex than anyone initially imagined. The first major theory centers on the possibility that Lars suffered a severe traumatic brain injury during the alleged attack on July 6th. This theory gains credibility when we consider how dramatically brain injuries can alter behavior and perception. A person with a traumatic brain injury might genuinely believe they are being pursued, even when no threat exists. They might experience hallucinations, extreme paranoia, and make irrational decisions that seem completely out of character. What makes this theory particularly compelling is the documented medical evidence of Lars's head injury. The ruptured eardrum and jaw injury were real, confirmed by medical professionals. But here's what many people don't realize about head injuries. The visible damage often represents only a fraction of the actual trauma. Internal brain injuries can occur without obvious external signs, and their effects can be delayed, sometimes not manifesting until hours or days after the initial impact. Consider this scenario. Lars was indeed attacked by multiple individuals, as he claimed. During this attack, he sustained not only the visible injuries to his ear and jaw, but also a more serious traumatic brain injury that wasn't immediately apparent. Over the following days, as brain swelling increased and neurological damage progressed, his mental state deteriorated rapidly. The paranoia, the erratic behavior, the desperate flight from the airport, all could be explained by progressive brain injury. This theory is supported by numerous documented cases of individuals who appeared fine immediately after head trauma, but later developed severe neurological symptoms. The timeline fits. The behavioral changes align with known effects of traumatic brain injury, and it explains why Lars's fears seem so real to him, even though no actual threat could be identified. But there's another medical angle that investigators initially overlooked. The antibiotic cefprozil that Lars was prescribed belongs to a class of drugs known as cephalosporins. While generally safe, these medications can cause serious neurological side effects in certain individuals, particularly those who may have underlying conditions or who have consumed alcohol during treatment. Remember, Lars had been drinking at the bar on the night of the alleged attack. He had also suffered a head injury. The combination of alcohol, head trauma, and antibiotic medication could have created a perfect storm of neurological complications. Some medical experts believe this combination might have triggered what's known as antibiotic-induced psychosis, a rare but well-documented condition that can cause severe paranoia, hallucinations, and irrational behavior. What's particularly disturbing about antibiotic-induced psychosis is how rapidly it can develop and how real the symptoms feel to the person experiencing them. Individuals in this state genuinely believe they are in danger. Their fear is not pretended or exaggerated, it's a neurologically driven response to false perceptions created by the medication's effects on brain chemistry. Now let's examine the geographical challenges that have puzzled investigators for years. One of the most persistent questions about Lars's disappearance centers on the location where he vanished. Many people, particularly those from countries with vast wilderness areas, automatically assume that someone could easily become lost and die in any forested area. But Bulgaria's landscape presents a very different scenario. The forest where Lars disappeared is not a remote wilderness. It's located near Varna Airport, surrounded by residential areas, roads, and infrastructure. This isn't the kind of isolated backcountry where someone could wander for days without encountering civilization. The entire area has been developed over decades, with regular human activity and well-established paths and roads throughout the region. This geographical reality raises serious questions about the conventional theory that Lars simply got lost and died from exposure. How does someone disappear completely in an area that's fundamentally not remote? How do extensive search efforts involving professional teams, trained dogs, and advanced technology fail to find any trace of a person in a relatively small inhabited area? Some investigators believe the answer lies in understanding how disoriented individuals behave in crisis situations. When someone is experiencing severe psychological distress or neurological impairment, they don't move through terrain the way a rational person would. They might hide during the day and move at night. They might seek out the most concealed locations possible, avoiding paths and roads that would normally lead them to safety. There's also the possibility that Lars, in his compromised mental state, found a hiding place where he remained until he died from dehydration, exposure, or medical complications from his injuries. Even in a populated area, there are abandoned buildings, drainage systems, dense undergrowth, and other locations where a body might remain hidden for years. There's also the possibility that Lars, in his compromised mental state, found a hiding place where he remained until he died from dehydration, exposure, or medical complications from his injuries. Even in a populated area, there are abandoned buildings, drainage systems, dense undergrowth, and other locations where a body might remain hidden for years. This theory gains credibility when you consider that Lars was actively trying to hide from what he perceived as threats. His paranoid state might have driven him to seek out the most concealed location possible, somewhere he felt safe from his imaginary pursuers. Unfortunately, this same instinct to hide could have trapped him in a location where he couldn't escape or signal for help when his condition deteriorated. The psychological profile that has emerged of Lars makes his disappearance even more puzzling. Everyone who knew him described him as rational, stable, and mentally healthy. He had no history of risk-taking behavior, no experience with wilderness survival, and no apparent reason to deliberately disappear from his life in Germany. This profile has led some investigators to focus on the possibility that something genuinely traumatic happened to Lars during his night away from his friends on July 6th. While the story of being attacked by 4 hired thugs seemed implausible to his friends, something clearly occurred during those missing hours that fundamentally changed his mental state. Could Lars have witnessed something he wasn't supposed to see? Could he have become involved in some kind of criminal activity, either voluntarily or involuntarily? Varna is a port city with a history of smuggling and organized crime activity. While there's no evidence connecting Lars to any criminal elements, the possibility can't be entirely ruled out. The international nature of this case has also created complications for the investigation. Lars was a German citizen who disappeared in Bulgaria, requiring coordination between multiple law enforcement agencies. Different investigative procedures, language barriers, and jurisdictional issues may have impacted the efficiency of the search and investigation efforts. German authorities have remained actively involved in the case, but they must work within the constraints of Bulgarian law and procedures. This has sometimes led to delays in sharing information or implementing search strategies that might have been deployed more quickly in a single jurisdiction case. Technology has played a significant role in keeping this case in the public eye. The airport security footage of Lars's final moments has been viewed millions of times online, and amateur investigators around the world have analyzed every frame looking for clues that professional investigators might have missed. Social media has also enabled unprecedented collaboration between investigators, family members, and volunteers. New theories and potential leads continue to emerge through online discussions, and several promising investigative directions have originated from crowdsourced analysis of the available evidence. But despite all this attention and analysis, Lars Mittank remains missing. His case has become one of Europe's most famous unsolved disappearances, joining the ranks of other mysterious vanishings that continue to baffle investigators and capture public imagination. The impact on Lars's family has been devastating. His mother has never stopped searching for answers, traveling to Bulgaria multiple times to meet with investigators and search teams. She has maintained that her son was not mentally ill and that something specific happened to him during his final days in Bulgaria that triggered his strange behavior. The family has also had to cope with the intense media attention and online speculation surrounding the case. While they appreciate the public interest that keeps Lars' story in the spotlight, they have also had to deal with numerous false leads, conspiracy theories, and sometimes insensitive commentary about their son's mental state. Recent developments in the case have been limited, but investigators continue to follow up on new leads and tips. Advances in search technology, including improved ground-penetrating radar and drone surveillance capabilities, have enabled more sophisticated searches of areas that might have been missed during the initial investigation. Cold case investigators have also brought fresh perspectives to the evidence, using modern analytical techniques to re-examine witness statements, security footage, and physical evidence from the scene. While no major breakthroughs have occurred, this ongoing analysis continues to refine understanding of what might have happened during Lars's final hours. The Lars Mittank case represents one of the most compelling examples of how quickly a normal situation can turn into something completely inexplicable. A routine vacation with friends transformed into a nightmare of paranoia, fear, and ultimately disappearance that has resisted resolution for over a decade. What makes this case particularly haunting is how well documented the final days are. We have security footage, witness testimony, medical records, and phone call records that provide a detailed timeline of Lars's deteriorating mental state. Yet despite all this evidence, we're no closer to understanding what really happened to him than we were on the day he vanished. If this case has captivated you as much as it has captivated investigators worldwide, this is exactly the kind of deep dive analysis you'll find on this channel. We don't just scratch the surface of these mysteries, we examine every piece of evidence, every theory, and every possibility to try to understand what really happened. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest investigations into the world's most baffling disappearances. The question that haunts everyone who studies this case remains the same. Was Lars Mittank a victim of his own damaged mind, fleeing from imaginary threats into a forest where he tragically lost his life? Or was he actually being pursued by real enemies who somehow managed to make him disappear without leaving any trace? The answer to that question died with Lars in the Bulgarian wilderness, and despite a decade of searching, we may never know the truth about what happened to the young German tourist who ran into the forest and never came back. In the end, the mystery of Lars Mittank serves as a reminder of how fragile the boundary is between normal life and complete chaos, and how quickly someone can cross from one side to the other, leaving behind only questions that may never be answered.